the jeweler got some goals. I sold a little weed, but I could never sell my soul. And when I'm in LA, you find me out in Lil Folk. I'm a vocal with my ramen, I'ma need another bowl.
Hey, a new video's gonna take a bit. Here's every open season or something. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone.
It's not even Christmas, you fucking dumbass.
Why do you sound like that?
I'm preparing for my new album, Whole Lotta Cock.
Oh, it's these jokes now, isn't it?
It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry, we divide.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go review Open Season now. You have fun with that. Anyways, Open Season is a movie. A movie that I haven't watched since I was like 7. A movie written by Steve Moore, who would go on to also write O. Now, this is actually a pretty highly requested video. Sadly, though, one of the most popular videos on this franchise is made by a child molester, and I can't just let him take my views and molest children. So today, we're reviewing Open Season, I guess. So our film opens with this woman, who is jump scared by her pet bear named Boog. Boog then dances, I guess, because that's funny.
Can she get down like this?
So they get in a car, I guess, and it's revealed that Boog is a show bear cross pet thing, who does shows for tourists nearby. We then cut to this guy who... I wonder if he's the bad guy. So this guy's a hunter who just got back from tying this deer on his car. A deer that's the secondary character on the poster. It's then revealed that the hunter and this girl are enemies. And the hunter also likes killing animals. Meanwhile, Boog is in the back of the Jeep. But the secondary deer character wakes up, who's played by Ashton Kutcher, so I'll call him Ashton Kutcher. This leads to a funny scream. So they're talking and shit, and that's about it. And while the two human characters are rap battling, Ashton Kutcher convinces Boog to free him. This makes the hunter very mad, and the scene ends. Cut to Boog's house that night. Boog is watching live war crimes on TV, but the female character's like, go to bed, you fucking thing. So Boog, with his stuffed animal character, goes to bed, but not before the female character has a song number.
If you go
Hold up.
But as Boog tries to sleep, he's waken up by Ashton Kutcher, who is throwing bunnies at his wall. I'll admit, that's a little funny, I guess. So Ashton Kutcher's all like, let's get out of here, bro. But Boog's all like, nah, man.
This here is my home.
So after some funny slapstick, the deer character convinces Boog to leave. So they head off to a gas station. They then break in and start wrecking shit up.
Hello, idiot. Hey, Rob, piss baby.
So their makeshift party keeps going, and yeah, we get the bear twerking meme. Yo, this go hard. Mind if I screenshot? But then the cops arrive, so Ashton Kutcher leaves, leaving Boog to get arrested. Arriving home, the lady is mad at him. Boog then comedically throws up. And this officer guy is all like, we got one more summer to pack lunch. And to give this film credit, I do like this scene, actually. Yeah, it can be juvenile, but Boog's owner loves him unconditionally. And despite her frustration with him, she still loves him anyways. It's not deep or anything, but look, it's a wholesome scene, okay? Cut to the next day. We encounter Ashton Kutcher walking around, but so does the bad guy who tries to run him over. This leads to Ashton Kutcher interrupting Boog's show backstage. Boog then wrestles Ashton Kutcher, which the audience notices and holy shit, what the shit? You know what? I like this scene too. It's funny. Boog is then put down, and so is Ashton Kutcher. And this guy's all like,
it's time, Beth. Take him above the falls. You'll be safe there.
So Boog is flown up to a place that's far from his home. Oh, that kind of rings a bell. So Boog then wakes up. He then starts panicking and discovers Ashton Kutcher next to him. He's then all like,
my life is missing. And it's all your fault.
Let the rock tell you in Chinese.
So Boog decides the best course of action is to find his way back home. So he leaves Ashton Kutcher behind, but unfortunately keeps going back in circles. But after a bit of trekking, finally sees a tree. So he tries to climb it, but comes across some Scottish squirrels.
Touch a needle in this tree and I'll give you such
Have you started making out the fucking screw?
Anyways, so the squirrels start throwing pine cones at him, I guess, and that's about it. So Boog goes to Ashton Kutcher and is all like,
where's the doge?
And Ashton Kutcher's all like,
okay, all right. I'll take you to town, but when we get there, we're partners.
And at first, Boog's all like,
No.
But as per cliche plot trope, Boog lets him tag along anyways. Man, I wonder if they'll become best friends by the end. Meanwhile, the hunter guy is driving his car and starts discussing conspiracy theories.
A bear and a deer working together.
How far does this conspiracy go?
In 1945, corporations paid 50% of federal taxes.
He then sees this dog driving the car, and he then crashes his car. But it turns out it wasn't the dog the whole time. Whoa! Meanwhile, our main characters are walking around. Boog then climbs this mountain, but falls off of it. He then lands on this tree branch and sees a porcupine character. Oh, that sounds oddly familiar, doesn't it? Anyways, we meet these beavers or something, and they laugh at our main characters, I guess, because that never happened in a kids movie before. Boog then tells Ashton Kutcher,
We are not we.
What do you mean we? Nintendo?
Once again, a moment never seen in a kid's film before. But then Boog's hungry, I guess. So after some food dialogue, and after revealing he needs to use the restroom, Ashton Kutcher takes a shit on the floor.
Ew, you nasty ass bastard!
There's then a joke scene where Boog has trouble using the restroom. This is followed by him meeting some French duck.
Don't touch that dial now, we're just getting started.
What was that?
So anyways, funny French stuff happens.
There were thousands of us when we started in the big V.
Meanwhile, Ashton Kutcher sees a girl deer, I guess. Man, I wonder if they'll fall in love by the end of the movie. But then Patrick Warburton comes out.
Hello, smell.
Love yo mama? So funny, yo mama deer hates Ashton Kutcher for some reason. But then Boog comes out. But then all the other deer make fun of him, I guess. And then they leave and that's about it. Cut to that night, where Boog and Elliot bond together under the moonlight. Wait just a fucking moment. So you're telling me Steve Moore wrote 2 movies about 2 talking animals that start off as complete opposites but become closer as the film goes on, which also include jokes about French ducks. Is Alpha and Omega unoriginal?
Right. Turn the game off.
Oh, and if you thought that wasn't crazy enough, the very next scene involves an old woman with an RV. Am I like grasping at straws here or something? Or is Alpha and Omega just so unoriginal that its own creative team were ripping off of their own ideas? So anyways, this family is camping, I guess. But then the hunter guy assaults their dog and then tells them about a future where animals rule over humans, I guess. And then he's all like,
If I don't stop them, it'll be a total reversal.
it'll be like George Orwell's book, 1984.
This is like George Orwell's book, 1984.
So Boog and Ashton Kutcher wake up. But they start fighting because it's the 3rd act of the movie. But it also turns out they're going in circles. But it also turns out the hunter is now after them. So Boog runs across this beaver dam. But it then breaks, causing an Uncharted 3 set piece to happen. So one epic set piece later, the hunter guy falls to his presumed death, and our heroes end up on shore. They then fight because 3rd act of the movie. And then Boog leaves, and it's very sad. You know, I'm getting real tired of these 3rd act breakups. They're so contrived and barely even actually do anything. Yes, I do love losing all focus in the middle of my fucking fictional movie. Yes, I love it when all character development rubber bands back to the beginning of the movie. It's quite literally drama for drama's sake. Please stop doing this shit. So Boog goes to Luigi's mansion. He then heads inside and sees a bunch of taxidermied animals. And it's revealed this was the hunter's house the whole time. So Boog hides from him as he sings to him.
Go out in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise.
So one Resident Evil boss fight later, Boog locks him in the basement with his own gun and escapes the house. Could've just shot him, but it's a baby movie, who cares? Boog then arrives back at the city, but then sad piano plays, meaning he's feeling bad about his decision. So he goes back to Ashton Kutcher, which I totally didn't predict at all. But some bad guy hunters are coming. So as Boog and Ashton Kutcher go back home, the other animals are like, can we come with you? But before Boog can decide, they stumble across a whole camping ground for the hunters.
Nobody's going home tonight.
But then Boog has an idea, and the idea is war. They then sneak up to the RV from earlier, and it's revealed the dog from earlier is a German?
That's good. Mama's getting kind of gamey.
Anyways, the animals steal from the RV, but the German dog follows them and is all like, please, let me grow follow you. And that's his whole character arc. And now begins the war. So all the animals start white phosphorussing the hunters. Man, I need different war crime jokes. Oh shit, that'll do. Some more war shit happens and the animals win. Oh, and they also bring out Mr. Happy, which is a holy shit, this is a war crime. So they drive the hunters out and win, I guess. But the one hunter is still alive, but thankfully someone throws a pot at his gun. The hunter then tackles him and a Metal Gear Solid 4 boss fight. Did I make that joke before? I don't give a shit. Boog then brutally murders him, but Ashton Kutcher sacrifices his life, and this makes Boog very angry, so he brutally murders him again. We then get the typical death fake out, where Boog's all like, no, Ashton Kutcher, but Ashton Kutcher is alive the whole time. You know, Alpha and Omega did this, and it was dumb then too. And then Boog's owner arrives. We then get some, I'll admit, pretty wholesome scenes, and she's all like, let's go home, Boog. But then Boog looks back at all the friends he made, and it's very sad, even though he barely had time to adjust to it throughout the film's narrative. So the owner's all like, you are home. So she lets him go, and Norm returns to the woods with all his pals. And then the movie ends. Welp, that was open season, and it was kind of generic, not gonna lie. This has to be one of the animated movies I've ever seen. I didn't really hate it that much, but it was just kind of mid. There were one or two scenes that I really enjoyed. enjoyed in this. And when the comedy hits, it is pretty funny. But that's the thing, the comedy is very hit or miss. And a lot of it goes for a generic kids movie juvenile affair. Furthermore, the overall plot feels pretty rushed. Boog and Ashton Kutcher don't actually have that much chemistry, and the film relies way too heavily on tropes. But in the end, I wasn't vehemently angry at this movie. I like the plot about friendship, it's just very tropey. A plot like this could work, it's just open season is just pretty lazy and generic. But Alpha and Omega ripped this shit off. Seriously, all Alpha and Omega did was take this movie and shit Romeo and Juliet onto it. Not only is Alpha and Omega unoriginal, there's proof that it's unoriginal. Entire plot threads, jokes, and characters, and joke characters are lifted out of open season. This is one of the most corporate, soulless films of all time, and that's why it's one of the worst films I've ever seen. What did you think, Dwayne?
Let the Rock tell you in Chinese.
Whoa, what the fuck? Chinese?
Ding bong, ding dong.
Oh, okay, no, we're not doing that.
On the day that you were born.
Open Season 2, one of the worst things I've ever seen in my fucking life. Like, okay, the first Open Season wasn't a masterpiece, but it was, like, fine. It was certainly a movie that I could indeed watch. But this movie, Open Season 2, this was terrible. This is one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my life. This is like Alpha and Omega levels of terrible. Oh my god! Like, to the people who made this, all I gotta say is, this movie is terrible, and I'm gonna show you why. This is Open Season 2, I guess. So our film opens with Ashton Kutcher, who isn't played by Ashton Kutcher anymore, giving opening narration.
His strength, his masculinity, his awesomeness.
49 seconds into this movie, and I want to fucking off myself.
His amazing kickbuttosity.
I might run off the road and kill myself.
So Ashton Kutcher has some new antlers, I guess, which of course leads to some really funny moments.
Like my antlers? Yeah! Oh, my rack is huge.
It's also revealed that Ashton Kutcher is getting married to the deer from the first movie. I sure hope you remember what her character is like, because I certainly don't. But then Ashton Kutcher comedically falls down and breaks his horns. And he's really sad about it, but then an impromptu rabbit fight happens. Yes, that is as jarring as it sounds. Oh, and by the way, yes, this movie does look like dog shit. This is actually on par with the Alpha and Omega movies. I kid you not. Did they take footage from the Open Season video game? What the fuck is this? Now, yes, this is a direct-to-DVD movie in the US. Yeah, that's right. In other countries, this was released theatrically, including Squid Game South Korea. Just to keep that in mind. Anyways, meanwhile, the human characters from the first movie are looking for the Cosmodor dog character. And they're all like, ew! What? What is this character model? This is horrible! So anyways, one rap battle later, the wedding ceremony begins.
We're gathered today for a very serious occasion.
Holy shit, that is the worst Patrick Warburton impression I've ever heard. They really couldn't get the Yo Mama guy to do it. So Ashton Kutcher's nervous about the long-term commitment. And meanwhile, the German dog character goes wandering off and sees some treats on the floor. And he eats it, I guess. And Ashton Kutcher sees this and runs to him, ruining the whole wedding. Mr. Weenie is then taken by the human from the first movie. And then there's a yellow filter over this movie all of a sudden. Yes, I love watching my movies in piss. And Ashton Kutcher comedically tells everyone about it.
He screamed, but she ignored his cry.
Man urinates on fellow passengers.
So the joke lasts for another 15 years because that's funny, I guess. And they all decide to go find Mr. Wiener.
I am feeling it in badging.
Meanwhile, Mr. Weenie is captured and tortured, and the female character is riding with the whole RV pack, which is where we meet these characters. One of them being the villain, and the other one being the comedy.
How long do you think it'll be till we stop? Cause I gotta poop.
So they all make a pit stop, and we're introduced to the comedically stupid cat character, whose only purpose in this movie is to tell what I think are jokes. But they're so unfunny that the only way I can tell is through the cues of this movie.
Is this ringing a bell?
There's many humor, many...
Finally, it's been ages.
Is this like a new form of comedy? This is the first Strand-type humor. So the villain Chihuahua character then gives his evil villain backstory on why he hates wild animals, where he's jump-scared by a ladybug and has a very minor injury on his tail, which is the punchline of the joke, by the way.
That is one sad tale.
I want a girlfriend.
I'm looking for a beautiful lady.
Don't you understand? We must remain vigilant. Even one wild animal among us.
Cut back to Ashton Kutcher and crew. So the female deer character is all like,
while I was saying I do, you were looking like you did it.
Man, you know, this is what I always wanted in my open season movie. Contrived marriage problems.
We're partners. You can tell me anything.
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead.
Everyone has Uno, dipshit. It came free with your fucking
No, you
Xbox.
don't. I bought mine on day one, you fucking tard.
So TLDR, they find Mr. Weenie. But Ashton Kutcher is trying to say it's a fake dog because he's too scared of getting married.
That's a totally different dog.
This is so contrived it actually hurts. So they all sneak up to the RV, but it turns out Mr. Weenie is locked up. So Ashton Kutcher comes on this guy. So one funny slapstick scene later, they end up freeing Mr. Weenie. But because Ashton Kutcher is a moron, he accidentally locks him in the RV. And the family gets away with Mr. Weenie again. You know, I'm really happy my time isn't being wasted. We then get more marriage problems. And this time it's because the female character is giving orders.
We're not even married yet, and you're already telling me what to do.
Golly, I love contrivances. But then suddenly, Ashton Kutcher thinks that Boog and his bland girlfriend character are cheating on him.
Boog! You traitor!
And they split up because that's the conflict. So one walking scene later, the human characters arrive at a camping site where Mr. Weenie is forced to wear an electric shock collar. He's then reintroduced to all these side dog characters, and then the bad guy Chihuahua starts talking. But then Mr. Weenie's all like, "But the wild animals were my friends!" And all the tame animals are shocked by this.
Nines wild animals are my friends!
Fuck no, baby!
This of course leads to the other animals 1984ing him.
It is worse than I could have ever imagined! Your friends? It's worse than I could have ever imagined.
So I guess they decide to euthanize him or something.
Prepare the tent.
Meanwhile, via the ducks, Boog finds out where Mr. Weenie is.
Mr. Weenie is over the trees, past the lake, and the mountain at the campsite with some dogs.
And yeah, that's about it. Meanwhile, that night, Mr. Weenie is brutally tortured. And that's about it. Nothing else to really say here. There's a joke about squeaky toys because you get it, he's a dog. And he's forced to fetch a stick or else, I don't know, a Squid Game. But then the funny porcupine from the first movie comes in. And this allows Mr. Weenie to escape the tent and for a funny slapstick scene to happen. In TLDR, Mr. Weenie goes free. And the villain gets comedically injured, I guess. Also, the humans from the first movie are very sad that Mr. Weenie has gone missing. As you can tell, I am very emotionally attached to these good characters. Meanwhile, Boog jump scares these people, giving his crew a campsite for the night. And the well-written female character talks about how much she hates Ashton Kutcher.
You know what? I'm glad Elliot's out of my life.
I mean, have you seen that 70s show? Terrible! Cut to Ashton Kutcher all alone and he's really sad. And that's about it.
Let me tell you about a girl that I know.
We then cut to Pet Paradiso.
Welcome to the Los Pollos Hermanos family.
Which is an amusement park made exclusively for pets. Which sounds like the biggest corporate waste of money of all time. Like, you make an entire themed water park with jungles and everything for creatures that are cognitively unable to give a shit. They build a whole theme park around stuff you can do in your backyard. Okay, well, maybe not that. Anyways, meanwhile, Mr. Weenie runs into Ashton Kutcher. And he's all like, "Oh, Boog and Giselle are in trouble!" How he knows this is beyond me. But I guess this subplot is happening now, so who gives a shit? Meanwhile, our main characters wonder how to get inside. So they dress up in really bad pet disguise, and Giselle sneaks inside. But while inside, they run into a Cuban stereotype character.
Good looks and funny too. But I was not talking to the Dalmatian.
I want Sosa's head on a fucking platter, man.
So they keep moving around the park with Xavier Renegade Angel models, but then they're spotted by the bad guys, I guess. Meanwhile, Ashton Kutcher shows up, and he runs into Boog, I guess. But it's then revealed that Giselle has been captured. So now the plot shifts from finding Mr. Weenie to finding Giselle. Which, on that note, holy shit, this film has ADHD or something. There are so many plot points, but this movie cannot pick one to focus on. And the awful pacing certainly doesn't help. If you're wondering why this review up to this point has been incoherent and really disjointed, it's because the movie is actually like this. Anyways, so Ashton Kutcher becomes a woman, and they all sneak in, and that's about it. Meanwhile, Giselle is captured, and the evil bad guy character plans on putting shock collars on them.
Collar them! Collar them! Collar them!
But then Ashton Kutcher comes in, but his plan epic fails because it cuts to him getting captured. Not even joking, it just cuts. Gotta love how lazy this shit is. Meanwhile, Boog is invading the water park, but he then loses his disguise, and all the humans take notice, causing the guards to pull out their fucking water gun. This causes a funny slapstick scene, of course. Meanwhile, Ashton Kutcher talks to his wife one more time.
If this is the end, I need to say something. Giselle, before the wedding, my rack was huge. There was the whole incident with the other woman.
Another woman?
The kind that grabbed Mr. Weenie.
But thankfully, Boog comes in and saves the day or something. So Boog sets them free, but the bad guy is still doing shit. So a big ol' slapstick scene happens, who gives a fuck? And long story short, they murder the bad guy. Yeah, he really dies in this movie. We then cut to Ashton Kutcher talking about racism or something. But then, it turns out Mr. Weenie doesn't want to be free anymore.
Just like you, I have realized that if you're never tied to anything, you'll never be free.
So he goes back to the human characters, making this entire movie a waste of my fucking time. So anyways, Ashton Kutcher confesses his love again, which leads to him...
They long to be close to you.
That's the most romantic
Why
thing.
do
Understands me. You never understood anything. Nobody wants me. So they can all just die.
Then what is your hand for?
Nobody cares whether or not I exist. So they can all just die.
Then tell me, what is your heart for?
Is it okay for me to be here?
Close to you.
Yeah, they included a song number in this, and it's horrible. It's out of nowhere. It's pointless. It's not even original either. It's a shitty cover of a Carpenter's song. This is like Alpha and Omega bad. You know what? To whoever did this.
You know what, Giselle?
You serve zero purpose.
And then at long last, the movie ends.
Close to you!
Wilp, that was awful. I kid you not, that was genuinely one of the worst things I've seen in a while. It's that whole kind of, we gotta get character X back type plot, while also combined with the marriage sequel. And that, on the surface, would have been fine, I guess, if the film did anything with that. But it didn't, making the film extremely predictable. And anything new it does do, it isn't very good at. Case in point, all of the new and old characters are extremely boring. In fact, I've already forgotten them. Who the fuck is this guy? Also, why are Giselle and Mr. Weenie the focus of this movie? I really don't think they're strong enough to support this kind of plot. In the original movie, they were either plot tropes or joke characters. And trying to give them arcs while also not really fleshing them out goes about as well as you think. The animation is shit. It's extremely janky. There aren't too many animation errors, but holy shit if it isn't an eyesore. The pacing is also horrible too. It's way too fast and disjointed. It wants to replicate the fast-pacedness of the original movie, but it ends up feeling extremely rushed. It's like they wrote it as they went along, but never actually did any other drafts. It's kind of like my own video, only with a shitty song number at the end. Overall, this movie sucks. Fuck my life.
You know what? I agree with your opinion, man.
Yeah, you see, Kanye agrees with me. What? Kanye!
3 meals a day and everyone in bed by sunset, okay?
Fine. I'm a fucking god of war.
Come out here all like this divorce in time. Hit Davidson all like Kim Kardashian is fine. Hit Davidson all like Kim Kardashian is mine. I'm like 154.42, 1.84.9.
You know, I should really do something about this. Oh look, open season 3. I gotta review that. Wow, how convenient. Just comes into my house. Why yes, there is an open season 3. In fact, and I failed to mention this last time, there are 4 of these things. And today we are certainly watching one of them. Look, man, I need the ad revenue. Genuinely nobody gives a shit. So our film opens with Boog, fresh out the studio, and he's getting ready for Guy's Trip, which is a thing that guys go on. But everyone keeps canceling on him, sadly.
No Guy's Trip for me.
What? No Guy's Trip? This is like George Orwell.
With all the new kids, I'm not done collecting me nuts.
So everyone keeps turning Boog down for Fight Club. But Boog then runs into Ashton Kutcher's children. Yep, he did breed in this one. 2 of them being girls who have the personality of wet cardboard. That's not a joke, by the way. They actually don't have any personality. And 1 boy who is basically Ashton Kutcher. That way, when writing his character, there's no effort actually put into it. Anyway, so Ashton Kutcher shows up. And after some very funny comedy, it's revealed that Ashton Kutcher can't go to Fight Club because his engaging character of a wife told him to babysit the kids. This makes Boog very mad and sad, and me extremely engaged. So Boog goes on to Fight Club himself, I guess. And we get a scene where he tells a scary FNAF story to his teddy bear.
O'Reilly! Auto parts.
But then it starts raining and Boog goes into a trash can. And we get a skit with an angel and demon on Boog's shoulders, which my brain does indeed process as comedy. But I'm not sure if that's the case because I can't even tell if I'm human anymore. So the conflict is Boog is mad at Ashton Kutcher. We then get, I kid you not, a scene where Boog gets drunk at a gas station. So they're just taking scenes from the first movie at this point. And you know what? If the movie doesn't give a shit, neither do I. Anyway, so Boog's all like,
we gotta go somewhere where folks don't let us down. Place where we fit in.
Man, I wonder if he'll return back to his friends by the end. But he then sees a poster and a tent for a circus, so he decides to go to it. We then cut to this girl and this guy, as well as this comedic relief character, all of them working in the circus. And this bear character hates being ordered around, lamenting his days as king of the jungle.
All the animals worship me. There was one grizzly, one king of the jungle.
Now you may be thinking, wait a minute, grizzly bears don't live in the jungle. And to that I respond, so this character, we'll call him, I don't know, Chris Rock, wants to break free from the circus. And seeing this alpaca and this female character move, I noticed something. The animation is actually an improvement. I wouldn't call it great, of course, but it's way better than whatever the fuck Open Season 2 was. Characters will squish and bounce around. Certain lighting effects look pretty good. As far as direct-to-DVD money laundering schemes go, this is pretty decent. So anyways, Boog meets Chris Rock, and he's jealous of Chris Rock's circus lifestyle. And he also sees the female character and gets a massive boner. And he's all like, man, I would leak her Rule 34 onto the Italian Senate. The bears then decide to switch spots. And yeah, that is the plot of the movie. We then cut to, no! Can we execute all of these characters?
Play nice with everybody.
Wait a minute, that's the... Also, the villain from the first movie is a good guy now, and that's about it. But they then see Chris Rock on the TV, and they think it's Boog, and they also think he's in trouble, I guess. So they break out to save him, and that's actually about it. Cut back to Ashton Kutcher, who's angry at Boog, and that's literally about it. Yeah, not even joking. That's all this scene is. It's just Ashton Kutcher complaining and getting into slapstick. You know, I could have filed my taxes today. Anyways, cut back to Boog, who walks into this tent and sees the girl bear and is all like, man, I wanna, sex. When he tries talking to her, a bunch of German people start grooming him. And because she thinks he's the other bear, she's all like, fuck you, I hate you. And, that's about it. We then get a Sound of Music reference? What the fuck? And Chris Rock, who is disguised as Boog, makes it to Boog's home. But then Ashton Kutcher shows up and starts yelling at him. And then he just leaves, and that's the whole scene. What the fuck is this pacing? Cut back to Boog and the alpaca character, and Boog's mad because the other guy didn't return yet. And the alpaca character is... Fuck me. Boog then sees the female character do the Joker bathroom dance. She then sees Boog staring, and she does not like that. And Boog's like, I'm not the guy you think I am, I'm Boog. But she's all like, no, I hate you, This makes Boog very sad, and he starts playing the entirety of Max Payne 3 on his banjo. But then the alpaca character's all like,
the way to a woman's heart is through her art.
Of course, now you'd have to sell them as NFTs. Cut to these characters I don't give a shit about. Long story short, they hop onto this thing, they make it to a gas station, and a slapstick scene happens, and that's literally it. Not exaggerating, by the way. This scene has no impact on the plot whatsoever. It's literally pointless. This movie is a waste of time! Cut back to Ashton Kutcher, who has an angel and a demon on his shoulder, because it was hilarious the first time, but his kids are all like, man, you should make up to Uncle Boog. But then Ashton Kutcher starts crying and is all like, man, I'm a failure of a dad. Which he is, by the way. But his kids are all like,
you're not a complete failure. You're a dad. We love you no matter what.
Is this the God of War storyline?
Hey, let us have him, man. I'm speeding.
But meanwhile, Liquid Imposter Boog starts bossing everyone around. But Ashton Kutcher's Mary Sue children start thinking that Boog is acting sus. Cut back to... whatever the fuck this is. So Boog is trying to impress the female character, and also prove that he's Boog and not the other guy. And then some bullshit happens, who really cares anyways? And because Boog can ride a unicycle, she believes him. I mean, wouldn't you? She then brutally murders him, which to be fair, I would do that too.
The gods of Olympus have abandoned me.
We then cut to them dancing to fucking cats. The two of them then have a hardcore furry sex. It's very explicit, might I add. I'm shocked they put this in a kid's movie. And if you don't believe me, I dare you to watch the movie and prove me wrong. In fact, I dare you to watch this movie multiple times, at least 12 in one sitting. That way you can really prove me wrong this time. This footage isn't even from this movie. It's not even from a movie. Meanwhile, not Boog is still bossing everyone around. But then Ashton Kutcher's wife comes in, and fake Boog's all like, no. But Ashton Kutcher's wife is all like, you're an imposter. And long story short, they find out he is an imposter.
I thought you were mad at me, but now I know that you weren't because you're not even you.
So they all publicly execute him, and that's about it. Cut to these stupid ass characters. So after a bunch of bullshit, they realize the circus is right behind them, and that's about it. Cut to the circus. So Boog and the female character have another spicy and hot sex scene. But then the alpaca starts being obnoxious again, and Boog's all like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been a bad friend. Which could have been a really emotional scene if this alpaca character didn't make me want to kill myself.
It's time to die.
Shut the fuck up! But then it's revealed that Boog is being transported over to Russia, which I guess means I have to make a Russian joke. I don't know.
Vladimir Putin!
And Boog is very sad about this, and yeah. Meanwhile, Ashton Kutcher and the one dog character all go on a rescue mission to save Boog. Hey, that's what Cosmodor said before he groomed a minor. Hey, speaking of which, I wonder what he thinks of Open Season 3. Let's give his video a fair chance to shine.
Elliot got dumbed down even further to the point where it's unbearable to watch.
The biggest problem with this film is that all the characters are above the age of 18. The film would have been way better if all the female characters were 16.
Wow, what a really weird opinion. I wonder why he said that. Meanwhile, Ashton Kutcher and his gang meets up with Mr. Weenie, and they all team up to save Boog, and that's about it. So they all sneak in as the show begins, and a bunch of slapstick happens, and yeah. So after a bunch of bullshit, Boog talks to the female bear, and he's all like, I don't know if I want to move to Russia. But she's all like, you have to do the lift for the show. So he does the super amazing special lift, and they have live intercourse on stage in public. And if you don't believe me, watch the movie for yourself. Anyways, Boog's all like, Ashton Kutcher, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I committed those war crimes ironically. And Boog's all like, please come with me, girl bear that I'm in love with. And she's all like, oh, Boog, I love you, but I can't do that. I got to stay in the circus and pre-order Stalker 2. But Ashton Kutcher's all like, Boog, I want you to stay and be happy with the girl. But out of nowhere, the other bear comes in, and he's suddenly more grateful now. Just magically, I guess. And he's all like, I'm sorry for being a dick the whole movie. So now he's the bear in the circus, which means the female bear can leave with Boog. So magically, everything turns out okay. Fuck you. So cut back to the forest. Boog and his furry waifu do shit or something, and they all go on guy trip where... Yeah, no, review over. Fuck this shit. Yeah, this was really bad. I will say this, I didn't hate it as much as Open Season 2. The animation, while not great, is a pretty massive improvement. And the moral, honestly, isn't too bad either. Exploring how responsibilities and friendships can collide. It may be handled about as gracefully as a Cosmodor apology video, but at least Open Season 3 didn't send porn to minors. What it did do, though... What it did do, though, is just not be very good. The humor is extremely unfunny. The plot is generic and predictable. The characters are annoying. And my face looked like this the whole movie. Overall, it's certainly Open Season 3. What did you think, Andrew Garfield?
My bussy is shaking.
I didn't think of that one.
Looks like it's Open Season on Nintendo Switch.
Why did I move here? I guess it was the weather.
So yeah, they made an open season video game. And if you're asking why, well, it was 2006. That kinda explains itself. And you know what? Unlike the Alpha and Omega video game, which was made by a literal nobody, this game was actually made by Ubisoft. That's right, the guys who sell NFTs and harass with- No, not that company. Yeah, that They made an open season video game in 2006, and it's still better than Rainbow Six Extraction. Anyways, I'm playing the PC version, but this game was also released on the GameCube, the PS2, the Wii, the Xbox, and the Xbox 360. In case you wanna, you know, play this yourself. Which I'm just saying, it costs a lot less than fucking Battlefield 2042. Anyways, let's just jump into it. Anyways, presentation's up first, and yikes. This has to be one of the best looking games of all time. Real-time ray tracing, dynamic environment, dynamic facial expressions, high-quality texture work, high-quality fur physics, dynamic Ashton Kutcher tessellation. Okay, but all joking aside, yeah, this game looks kinda... To give the game credit, it's a 2006 licensed game, built on primarily PS2 hardware. But I mean, at the same time, this was built on the Unreal Engine 2, which was used to power games like SWAT 4 and Republic Commando, which compared to those games, this game just looks really flat. The textures are all really muddy and low quality. The character models are...
What about Dinkelman? Do you have Dinkelman with you?
It's just really unappealing visually. However, the same can't be said for the Xbox 360 version, which has better lighting and texture work, and much nicer looking environments. No, it's not God of War 3 or anything, but the difference is almost night and day. So I see what's going on here. Presumably, this game was made for the Xbox 360 first, and then downgraded for PS2 hardware. This was sadly a pretty common practice back in the day. But since the Wii and PS2 were weaker yet better selling hardware, and since the Xbox and GameCube were similar in scope, all of this does pretty much make sense. But what doesn't make sense is the terrible PC port. So, as also common practice of the time, it's this PS2 and original Xbox version that would then get ported over to PC. So all those fancy lighting effects from the 360 version are just gone in the PC version. So the game already looks worse when it really shouldn't. However, I can at least say the game runs at 60 frames and I can run it in 4K, even if it looks like absolute dog shit. However, changing your resolution is the only option you have. That's right, this is the options menu. This is the definition of bare bones PC port. Also, there's no controller support, which means you had to play this platformer game with a mouse and a keyboard, and it's about as awkward as you expect. So yeah, not a great port. However, as we all know, this franchise is known for its amazing narrative quality. So as per usual with movie licensed games from this era, especially ones that weren't at the time established franchises, the plot largely follows the first movie, only with the plot itself being extremely abridged and with random bullshit taking up entire levels, if not multiple levels. The biggest offender for me being the final level. So at the end of the first movie, there's a giant battle scene between the animals and the hunters, but of course they also have to, you know, prepare for battle. So some genius developer over at Ubisoft went, hey, what if we stretch out the preparation to like 4 or 5 levels? I kid you not, near the end of the game, they just start throwing fetch quests at you. And the game will do this multiple times throughout, just stretching out anything into an entire level, with little to no variation or cohesion. There are certain parts of the movie that are just gone too, the parts that would have made decent levels, I think, like the part where Boog rips out Ashton Kutcher's intestines, just completely gone. The story-based cutscenes are also hysterical. In comparison to the pacing of the movie, they feel so rushed. They were clearly on a low budget, so they couldn't actually do anything. For example, when you free Ashton Kutcher from the hood of his car, the bad guy Shaw then comes out and just starts talking to you.
I saw you one time, my dear. You think that makes you like me?
There's also a gas station level based on the twerking boog scene. However, there is no twerking boog in this level, so already the story is dog shit. But there is a scene where you run out and get shot, and then the bear owner lady and the one old guy from the first movie, they don't talk at the lady's home like in the first movie. No, they talk in the middle of this alleyway while Boog is lying unconscious on the ground. There's also this really weird opening scene with Boog's stuffed toy Dinkelman. I think it's meant to be a tutorial level where you're just chasing around this giant Dinkelman toy. It's really weird and trippy and never happened in the first movie. But honestly, I kinda wish it did. It's just so weird and trippy and out of nowhere. However, the rest of the cutscenes are honestly really horrible and boring. A good majority of the cutscenes are just NPCs just talking to you, and it's really boring. Not only that, but they're relentless and everywhere. You can't go 5 minutes without Ashton Kutcher buzzing in your ear.
Hiding is a delicate art requiring much skill.
I'm trying to listen to the new Robert Palmer tape, but
Ashton Kutcher
keeps buzzing in my ear.
I mean, I like Kojima games and I'm complaining about this. That's when you know you've done something wrong. Leave it to Ubisoft to somehow find a way to make open season the most boring shit possible. There's also this one really weird part, where in the scene in the movie where Boog is at Shaw's cabin, and after you beat this level, you're given a choice to either go home or go back to the woods. However, this doesn't really matter at all, because going home reveals that you were heading in the direction of the forest the whole time. But heading back to the forest still leads you back to the forest? Man, I love it when games give me pointless fake choices. But the epitome of pure laziness has to be the ending. So you have one final boss fight with Shaw, and after beating him, you get one final narrative reward. And that narrative reward is, I kid you not, a Windows Movie movie maker's slideshow of the ending. No sounds or anything either. You get music and a slideshow. They couldn't be fucked to actually put in any dialogue or anything. It's just one massive slideshow. Oh, also, during cutscenes, there's a nodding mechanic, where you have to simulate nodding your head up and down after a character asks you a yes or no question. Yes, you heard me right. Not only is this completely pointless, but it also literally does not work. This mouse jittering is me trying to do this mechanic. Why is this a thing? So yeah, the story is mid-2000s licensed game. It's really rushed and pretty lazy. But now let's talk gameplay. The real meat and bones and the reason why you're pretty much here in the first place. Well, sorry to say, but first of all, this game isn't nearly as good as Dead or Alive Extreme 3.
But it does get me harder though.
So, Open Season, the video game, is a platformer, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the right word for it, since you can't even jump for most of the game. Most of the time, you're playing as Boog, whose means of traversal is only walking and running. This makes Boog a really stiff character to control. In fact, the only other movement option you really get is an upgrade to your run, where instead of your run being a light 2-footed jog, it's now a full 4-foot sprint. But that's kind of all the movement options you have, making Boog really slow and boring to actually control. Or, as the hip gaming journalists would say, it really makes you feel like Boog. The level design also complements this, by being mostly comprised of enclosed straight lines. Oh, you want to talk linear? This shit is the linearest of linear. This game makes a Call of Duty campaign look like Dying Light 2. Kind of ironic since this is a Ubisoft game, the company who would go on to make a billion bloated, boring open world games. So in a backhanded way, I kind of appreciate it. Furthermore, I mentioned earlier how most of the game is just fetch quests and doing tasks and favors to gain the trust of other animals. Yeah, I wasn't joking about that. A lot of these levels are built around just finding stuff for other animals. Sometimes they barely even function. This makes the levels feel more obligated than natural, making the game in general feel more repetitive. There's also a stealth mechanic. Yeah, not even joking. So throughout the game, to defeat these enemy hunters, you have to sneak behind them and scare them. When you do, you kind of enter a sneaking phase, where this circle pops up. And very similar to Squid Games, you have to play a game of red light, green light. You sneak up when it's green, and you press the disguise button when it's red. When you're up close, this prompt will pop up. This will then allow the scare bar to come up, and you have to hit the red part of the scare bar. This will allow you to roar XD your enemy, and remind them that they're in an open season video game. Nobody else hears your roar XD though, which makes zero sense. This mechanic is overall really boring. It's really slow and it's really tedious. Thankfully, there's a better way, the combat system. So when an enemy detects you, it actually takes them a while to pull out their weapon. My advice is to sprint face forward at them, pick them up, and then just throw them at something. Preferably another enemy, but over a cliff and murdering them will do. You can then scare them and the red bar will be much larger in this phase, leading to a much easier scare. Unironically, I had much more fun doing this. Not only is throwing people at each other really funny, but it's also a lot faster. You can take out a lot more enemies in a lot less time with this method than with whatever the hell the stealth mechanic is supposed to be. Speaking of throwing objects, there are items you can throw too. You can throw skunks to stun enemies. You can shoot bunny rabbits, which puts you in this horrible first-person mode and forces you to watch this really long cutscene of the bunnies doing your mom. This happens every single time. And you can even throw Ashton Kutcher off of a fucking cliff. I really only use these though when they were required. They're usually really clunky and force you to come to a standstill to actually aim and throw. In other words, using these animals is actively a chore. You're better off using the old combat mechanic way. It's not great or intuitive or anything, but it gets the job done. Oh, and speaking of Ashton Kutcher, there's some levels where you actually get to play as him, and he actually has a jump button. And while the platforming is extremely basic, I actually had fun platforming in this game. Don't get your hopes up though, these levels still kinda suck. First of all, you still have to deal with enemies, and the way you do that is by twerking at them, which makes them put down their guns for no reason and start chasing you. You then have to lead them into these bear traps, and this all works? Not at all. This makes you way more vulnerable and defenseless, as well as out in the open, causing you to die a lot more often than you should. Furthermore, any degree of fun these levels would have is ruined by some shitty gimmick that all these levels seem to have. Whether it's carrying around a chainsaw that doesn't work at all, or carrying around propane tanks that make you even more vulnerable, these tacked on gimmicks really ruin these levels for me, and lead to loads of frustration. There are also these on-rails segments, where essentially you're put on this uncharted set piece, and have to press the jump button to avoid obstacles. These exist, I guess. They're very simplistic, but I enjoy enjoyed them for the spectacle. And then there are turret segments which make me want to kill myself. These are so boring. You're essentially put at this standstill and forced to shoot enemies that come out of the woodwork. They're boring, tedious, and should not exist. And they're really only here to pad out game time, which I can pretty much say for most of this game. A lot of this is really basic stuff, but extended way longer than it should be, which is really weird since the game is only around 3 hours long. This game is quite literally full of filler content, and still can't hit that 4-hour mark. That's how you know this game was cheap. And in conclusion, that's kind of the best way to describe it. This game feels cheap and rushed. When it comes to 2006 licensed games, this is the most licensed game you'll get. A 3-hour-long, cheaply made platformer that somehow still finds a way to overstay its welcome. This is certainly a movie licensed game. From the stiff and basic controls and level design to the dictionary definition of tacked on story, this is exactly the game you expect it to be. A cheap licensed product. It's certainly not good, but I can't even say it's horrible either. It's just kinda mediocre. Still, it is a relic from a bygone era. And as much as I do indeed love the art of video games, this game did remind me of that era. An era, for better or for worse, we'll probably never see again. Overall, this is certainly Open Season the video game. But Dead or Alive Extreme 3 is the better game.
But yeah. There's many humor and jokes on here that I think are pretty funny. Like, if we go over here, we'll find a bar named Jizzy Jim's. Like jizz, like cum, you know? You get it? Yeah, so yeah, it has humor and
I just love my dog. I just love my dog. I just love my dog.
So here we are, the fourth and final Open Season movie. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it? From one of the movies ever made, to one of the worst movies ever made, to another movie that was made, and we even reviewed one of the video games ever made. Truly, Open Season is one of the franchises of all time. And here we are, Open Season Scared Silly, the fourth film in the series, and as of currently, the final film. I know, a lot of you are getting real emotional, but all good things must come to an end. So join me as we dive into Open Season 4, Scared Silly. Except, I was lying to you this whole time, because this is not Open Season 4. This is, in actuality, a soft reboot of the franchise, where the events of Open Season 2 and 3 just never happened. Yeah, not joking. So stuff like Mr. Weenie's dumbass friends, Ashton Kutcher's marriage, Ashton Kutcher's children, and Boog's girlfriend, all just erased from the timeline. It's like J.J. Abrams made this movie.
So one of the things that I bought at the magic store was this.
So in actuality, this is Open Season 2 again. Look, the other films weren't great or anything. They were pretty fucking awful. But was the Open Season IP just so valuable that you had to press the reset button? Well, judging from how it went last time, maybe a soft reboot is what the franchise needed. Even though, nobody asked for it. Because there's nobody who is genuinely a fan of this franchise. Shut up, no you aren't. So without further ado, this is my review of Open Season 4, one of the retcons ever made. So our film opens in black and white, with the female deer character about to get mauled by this werewolf. And because this scene is a direct parody of the Universal black and white monster movies, that means the black and white filter isn't completely pointless.
I'm just a doe, a deer, a female deer.
Wow, what a hilarious and topical Sound of Music reference. Hey look, I can do it too, Nazism. So they're about to get murdered, but thankfully Ashton Kutcher comes out, which leads to...
The werewolf communicates through interpretive dance.
I mean, if you want to call it comedy, you're more than welcome to.
Now stay here while
2 minutes and 49 seconds. So it turns out that it's all just a campfire story, told by Ashton Kutcher. But Boog apparently finds the story very scary, causing him to get jump scared and run away. Now, right off the bat, I noticed that the animation is good. Really good, actually. The way characters move is fluid yet bouncy. I love the way they express themselves. It's really adorable. The lighting is really nice and very reactive. It's not perfect or groundbreaking or anything, but compared to every other direct-to-DVD schlock piece of shit on this channel, and even the other movies in this franchise. It seems like for Open Season 4, they properly allocated the resources where they needed to go, and as a result, the film is really nice looking. So what I'm saying is, stop defending Alpha and Omega! So we get a flashback thing to the first movie.
You got the best flashbacks, Boog.
And it turns out Boog's actually afraid of getting jump scared by a werewolf. However, Ashton Kutcher is planning a camping trip, meaning that Boog might have to cancel. So Ashton Kutcher vows to help Boog face his fear. Wait a minute, so this film isn't about a contrived complication in their friendship? Am I in the fucking bizarro zone? But then Mr. Weenie comes out and reveals that his owners are missing. And long story short, believes it's a werewolf who took them. So they all plan to stop the werewolf first thing in the morning. But Boog's all like,
Elliot?
Yeah, Boog?
Don't tell anyone I'm afraid of the werewolf.
So naturally and comedically, Ashton Kutcher tells everyone that Boog's afraid of the werewolf, and that he plans to scare the fear out of Boog. We then get a dream sequence, where Boog is in his old garage and sees Beth, but is then jump scared. Now normally this would be generic, but after 2 movies worth of not building off of anything, it is a little nostalgic seeing this.
It was all just a real long bad dream.
So after being woken up, Boog tries going back to bed, but is then jump scared by Ashton Kutcher. And at this point I notice something. I think the movie might be self-aware. In some of the clips I played earlier, there's a weird, almost meta humor to some of these jokes.
Are you trying to scare me?
I was trying to say your name, but you jumped before I got to the G sound.
It's really weird. It's like the movie is in a perpetual state of sarcasm. It kind of reminds me of the Lego movie at certain points. Of course, not nearly as creative or funny, but I guess I appreciate what they're trying to go for here. So long story short, Ashton Kutcher convinces Boog to go into Dead Bear Gulch, the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria of this universe. And they're followed by Mr. Weenie, I guess, and yeah. We then cut to the villain from the first movie? What? I didn't think we'd get an open season nostalgia bait, but here we are. So due to open season being illegal, Shaw now works as a nature guide, and by coincidence is taking them down to Dead Bear Gulch. Whoa! Meanwhile, Boog and Ashton Kutcher are going deeper into the forest, where Ashton Kutcher plans on pranking him. So Boog is jump scared by shadow puppets, this thing, which is just the skunks, and is about to be jump scared by the giant werewolf, who is actually just the Yo Mama guy in disguise. But then he trips and does the funny Vine compilation, which ruins his disguise, but inadvertently makes everyone think he's the real werewolf. But thankfully they murder him, which causes him to meet up with Shaw and conveniently give him an idea. Meanwhile, Ashton Kutcher's all like, wow, it's not fake. But they also encounter Shaw and decide to investigate. So long story short, they follow him to this ranger cabin, and after eavesdropping on him and somehow not being discovered, they realize he's going to use the werewolf shit to re-legalize open season again. So long story short, a slapstick scene happens, and everyone thinks it's the werewolf. So uh-oh, open season is re-legalized now. So now shit's getting real crazy. Cut to...
Come on down to Eden.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what this is, but apparently Shaw recruits them, so that's all you need to know. Anyways, the open season characters decide to stop the werewolf themselves. We also get a...
lightning dance!
I couldn't even edit anything over that. So the gang goes to Mr. Weenie's RV to investigate, and all that really happens is a slapstick scene. Whoa! I love meandering! So more wild goose chase tracking for a non-existent werewolf happens, until Ashton Kutcher eats shit. A scene that I assure you is really funny because Ashton Kutcher eats shit in it. The crew then encounters Shaw, so they steal his plane for some reason. So after flying and spitting some one-liners, they crash the plane and die. Just kidding, they survive. Man, I really fooled you, didn't I? So after that extreme meandering, they decide to disguise Boog as a werewolf, putting him in a... Nobody told me this was a try not to ejaculate challenge.
Dude, I want to jerk off!
Okay, but seriously, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this. I guess it's a little bit funny, maybe. It's certainly absurd, I'll give it that.
Boog, make me attracted to you.
But then, due to a ketchup packet, they believe that Mr. Weenie is the werewolf?
Oh man, Mr. Weenie's the werewolf.
Huh? So they stalk him that night, in a scene that's not important because they fall asleep anyways, and wake up thinking he's the werewolf anyways. I know it's probably intentional, like, haha, we wasted your time, but that kinda makes the movie, fuck it, this is open season 4, who gives a shit?
So I am the werewolf? I'm always the last to hear about these things.
So now Mr. Weenie thinks he's the werewolf now. And suddenly the other characters decide he's not the werewolf anymore.
Mr. Weenie couldn't be the werewolf.
But then they encounter Shaw again. So they go into this place and an Uncharted set piece happens. Which, to be fair, this is actually a pretty good scene. The action is creative and intense. I really love the lighting and framing in it. They did a good job, you know? But during this scene, Boog loses Dinkelman, which means that once the scene ends, we get the not at all generic third act breakup.
I've had enough. I'm done. I'm building that panic room by myself and hibernating forever.
Wow, what a sad scene. I bet they won't get back together. So Ashton Kutcher's on the hunt himself. We then cut to... Fuck, no. Ashton Kutcher's still looking for the werewolf and encounters Mr. Weenie, who thinks he's a werewolf, and also Shaw and his hunters, who are disguised as werewolves. And uh-oh, Ashton Kutcher is pinned down, but thankfully Boog comes out. Man, I totally didn't predict that one. And long story short, he and the other open season characters jump scare the bad guys with Golden Freddy. We then get an epic fight scene, and you know the ending, Boog wins, I guess. Boog and Ashton Kutcher then reconcile, and the guy from the first movie calls off open season and is all like, "Oh, good job, Boog, you saved the day." And everything is all good now, I guess. We also get one more scene where the werewolf ends up being real, but Ashton Kutcher does a dance and that fixes the problem, I guess. And we get a dance party ending, everyone's favorite trope. We also get a scene where Mr. Weenie's family is saved. They were just gone the whole movie, so that plot point gets closed, I guess. Open season 2 model. And yeah, that's open season 4.
Just one more time.
Well, yeah. Well, but here's the good news. This is a return to form. It's a much simpler movie, and I think that really works in this case. And after 2 misguided, god-awful sequels, this one is actually an improvement. The film feels more in line with the first one. The humor, while not great, is better.
There's many humor.
And the animation work is actually really good. This is a return to form to the series' roots. So it seems that a soft reboot was actually a good idea for this franchise. The problem, though, is that those roots are already pretty mediocre. While the animation is really good, it never does anything outstanding. While the humor and the more self-aware tone is better, the jokes are still pretty hit or miss. And the story is full of tropes and contrivances. It's like everything good about this movie has a big ol' asterisk beside it, basically saying for an open season movie. But at the very least, I can officially say this is one of the sequels I have ever seen.
Fuck you in the lanes you came with. Me and you ain't on the same shit. You ain't in my lane, bitch. Nah, throw that shit in fifth. Rollie on my wrist. Ay, baby, you a star. I'm my only wish. I'm counting blue hundreds. I'm too money. Ay, and my little bitch, she too lovely. Yeah, hanging up and calling me right back. Ay, baby, why you calling me like that? Yeah, getting high with the seat, lay back. Baby, gon' relax, yeah. Hey, they don't know the half, yeah. No matter what happened, I got your back. Baby, that's the facts, yeah. That's the facts, yeah. We can fight, but the feeling's gone. I try to find the words, but they never come. I can still see you on the lawn. Hey, laying outside in the summer sun. Yeah, we can fight, but the feeling's gone. I try to find the words, but they never come. I can still see you on the lawn, hey, laying outside in the summer sun. Hey, I'm with a dark-skinned girl on a Sunday, that's that Black Sabbath. She put them ones all down on a Hyundai, and she had to have it. And she gone through, ready for the runway. Shawty, you the baddest. Ay, baby, that's the facts, yeah. That's the facts, yeah.
Thanks for everything, and see you next time.